So now that we have a good understanding on how this website works, let's go ahead and start trying to discover bugs within it. And before we even start doing that, let's start with the simplest way of discovering endpoints and possibly discovering sensitive data on the website. Because remember, if we manage to access data that we're not supposed to see, then it will be an information disclosure vulnerability. And even if it's not a vulnerability, we might be able to discover data that will help us discover other bugs. So searching for sensitive information is always a good first step. So let's go ahead and load the robots.txt file. Now keep in mind this file does not always exist, but it's worth a try. And we covered it before and we said this file contains paths that search engines should avoid and not load. And therefore these paths might be interesting to us since the website owner or creator is telling search engines to avoid. So let's try to load it. We got nothing to lose. And once we do that, as we can see, we're actually getting a file with useful information. And you can see it's saying that this allows search engines from loading admin and from loading the Go directory. So now we know there is a path that is called admin and there is a path that is called Go. So let's open up a new tab and try to load the admin path. And as you can see, we get a not found. So there's something wrong with this. But we're pretty sure that there should be something called admin. So let's try to do admin.php. And this is redirecting us now to the home page. So the path itself worked, but it probably knew that we're not admin, and that's why we were redirected in here. So this is interesting, but I'm gonna keep it later on for more tests because logging into the admin would be great, but I feel like it would be easier to achieve once we discover more information about the website and have a better understanding of it. So what I would do, I would open up a text editor. I like to use Sublime. I'm gonna include its link in the resources. And I'm just gonna paste the path that was interesting to me. So it was admin.php for further testing. And I'm just gonna add a note to myself later to say test later. You might think that this is too simple and you can remember it and you should keep it in your mind, but trust me, once you start digging deep into websites, you might start forgetting small things like this. So it's always better to take notes and actually write meaningful reasons why you're taking these notes. So I'm telling myself to test this later once I have a better understanding of the website. So let's go back and look at the robots.txt, and the next path that is interesting is the Go path. So let's go ahead and load this path. So again, we load the Go on its own, and that's probably not gonna work because the admin didn't work when we loaded it like this. And as you can see, sure enough, it didn't work. So we're gonna do go.php this time, and let's see if that works. And that actually works, but it's giving us an error message. It's saying invalid return URL supplied. So this error message should give us a clue that this go.php file probably takes some kind of a value, and it's some kind of a URL because it's saying invalid return URL. Now we haven't specified any return URL, so it's probably expecting us to give it that. So at this stage, there's going to be a bit of guessing. So we're going to put a question mark as usual when we want to supply information to the target. And we're going to try URL as a start. And let's just do https google.com. Hit enter and we're getting the same error. So that means the parameter name that we used in here must be incorrect because the web application is still not accepting it. So instead of this, let's go ahead and try to actually type return URL. And these are actually the things that I tried myself before I discovered the bug, and that still doesn't work. So I went ahead and actually did return _URL because that's what I would name it if I was actually programming this web page. And again, it's not accepting this. So in that case, so in programming, there's a number of ways to name variables if you want to include a space in it. Some people like to use underscore and others like to capitalize the next first letter. So instead of return URL like this, they would do return capital U and then URL. And if we do this one, perfect. As you can see, we get redirected to the website that we supplied, which was google.com. So this on its own is actually a vulnerability that is called an open redirect vulnerability. I did not dedicate a lecture to it because of how simple it is, as you can see. And since this vulnerability actually left the OWASP top 10 because it is not very common, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. As you can see, it exists because, like I said, all of the vulnerabilities in this website are inspired by real vulnerabilities. So the impact of this vulnerability is going to allow you as a hacker to craft a URL such as this and giving it to a user that trusts Target.com. So this could even be the admin of Target.com, and obviously they trust their own website. So you can send it as an email or even send it to employees. And once they load Target.com thinking they're going to end up on a trusted website, because this website is vulnerable to an open redirect vulnerability, once they execute or load this link, they're actually going to make a direct request to evil.com and they will end up loading evil.com. So the impact of this can be very severe because you could have malicious code running on evil.com, or you could have a clone of Target.com and ask them to log in and then steal their credentials, and the list goes on. So the possibilities of this being used by malicious hackers are endless, and it can actually be very dangerous. And therefore, in a bug hunt, you will definitely be awarded for discovering an open redirect vulnerability. And in a pen test, you should even pursue this even more. So you should actually start exploiting it and target users and admins and see how far you can take this exploit to, and obviously at the end include it in your report.